We did this morning the Mishnah of Elohim and Eskolam and Nun Gimel Amid Aleph. Now we're doing right after the Mishnah on 53a. In the Mishnah, we learned 18 types of sins that incur the. I don't think so. 18 different sins that would incur the skin. Okay, so then we said an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that argues with the Tanakh. And this is that if someone lives with his mother, that's also his father's wife. It's usually like that. Usually his father's wife is his mother. Could be. If it happens to be that his mother is his father's wife, how would it not be his father's wife? Because his father raped a woman, or lived with a woman that he wasn't married to, and then that's his mother, but it's not his father's wife. That could be also no, but once was ever his father's wife, it's always the father's wife. We're talking about that it was never the father's wife. So what's the halacha if they have to bring a sacrifice? You have to bring one sacrifice, two sacrifices. So it's machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Rabbanan, you have to bring two sacrifices. One because it was a prohibition of living with his mother. The other prohibition is living with his father's wife. Living with a married woman is not part of this, even though she may be a married woman. But there's only two prohibitions, there's three prohibitions, and then there's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that there's only one prohibition. Okay, so it comes along the Gemara, Tanya. Rabbi Yehuda says, if his mother was not an eligible wife to the father because she was prohibited for some reason, you follow? The father wasn't allowed to marry her. There was a violation there. Maybe the mother was a mamzeres, right? Or any other reason. So then the prohibition would only be because it's the son lived with the mother. So it's not his father's wife because his father was never really married to her. Right? We're going to see. It's not so simple. What does it mean she wasn't eligible? Doesn't we say that was a very strict prohibition? The father was not allowed to marry her. For example, it was a close relative of the father, was a sister or something, right? It was maybe a mom's or something. It was a strict prohibition. So then, Mechlal, that would imply that the Rabbanon, Sabri, the Rabbanon would hold that there are two prohibitions. Rabbi Yehuda holds that there's only one prohibition. The problem is that how could the Rabbanon hold that there's two prohibitions? One, that it's his mother. And second, that it's the father's wife. You can't say that unless the Kiddushim Midaveh. The Rabbanon can't hold that was considered married. Someone marries his sister is considered married. It's not marriage. So how could the Rabbanan say that there's two prohibitions? One, that it's his father's wife. It's not his wife. The other one, that it's his mother. Fine, but how could there be a machlokes about this? And it must have been that it was a lesser sort of prohibition. For example, his father was a kohen, and this was a divorcee. So there is a prohibition to marry her, but it's still considered a marriage. Now, there's an interesting machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda Sabalak Rabbi Akiva Damarin Kedushin takes from Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva that holds that's not considered a marriage because it's considered a negative prohibition. And Rabbi Akiva is very strict about negative prohibitions. He says that the same law that applies to a close relative is also on the negative prohibition, and it's not considered a marriage at all. So that's why there's only going to be one prohibition there. It's not considered a marriage. It's only that he lived with his mother, not that he lived with his father's wife. Okay. However, the Rabbanan would hold, like the Rabbanan, that argue on that and say that it is considered a marriage. Okay. And therefore, there's two prohibitions.
There's no concept of like unlaying the rabbin when you're
Well,
in this.
we're not talking about two death penalties because you can't get two death penalties. We're talking about that for some reason he's supposed to either be getting lashes or bringing a sacrifice. But now, did we say that it was two sacrifices, or did we say that it's only one? Rabbi Yehuda says it's one, and the Rabbanan say that it's two. Why? Why do they say it's two? Because this was a woman that was prohibited to the father. The father wasn't allowed to marry. And now the son lives with his mother. So one prohibition is he lived with his mother. Second prohibition is he lived with his father's wife. But is he considered his father's wife? Because the father wasn't allowed to marry her. So it's a machlekes if it's even considered a marriage. It's a machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan, and Rabbi Yehuda follows Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda is a student of Rabbi Akiva, and he says that it wasn't a marriage. That's why it's only one. Okay. Master Ravesha. Ravesha has a question. How could you say that this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? He follows Rabbi Akiva. I'm going to show you that it doesn't work like this. It's the mitzvah, it's the kedusha. We're talking about doing yibum. Talking about doing yibum on a woman that there's a prohibition for him to marry. All right. So let's say the prohibition is either a mitzvah prohibition or it's a holiness prohibition. It goes like this. So we didn't explain what each one is, but the halacha is chaltas v'lo misyaveh. That you do chalitza, but you don't do yibum. Right. All right. Isser mitzvah. No, you can't do yibum because you're not allowed to marry. Say the mitzvah of yibum should put you off the negative prohibition of that forbidden marriage. We say that but that would only be the first relations. But afterwards, it's going to be a prohibition. We're concerned the first relations maybe lead to the second relations, and so therefore we say you can't do any. Therefore, all you can do is chalitza. You can't do yibum. Okay, Reb Naftali, we just turned the page and we're on top of Nun Gimel Lamed Beis. We gave a little explanation for the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan if there's two prohibitions. When he lives with his mother, that's also his father's wife. Yeah, and machlekes if that's considered a marriage, if his father there was a problem with that marriage. And machlekes Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan if that's considered marriage. Okay, now we said how could Rabbi Yehuda follows Rabbi Akiva's view? It's a mitzvah shniyas midivrei sefer. What is a mitzvah? That's a rabbinic. It's a rabbinic prohibition of a close relative. He's not allowed to marry his grandmother. But what about his grandmother's mother? The rabbis added that on, right? And other such examples. Yeah.
Video lady.
Yeah. Please excuse his grandmother had a baby. That's what his aunts and uncles. Okay. My curly is a mitzvah. Why is it called this a mitzvah? Because it's a mitzvah to follow the sages. Issa kedusha. What's an issa kedusha? We're describing here the yibum, which was not allowed, and instead you do chalitza. Why was he even not allowed? Because this was someone that he was prohibited to marry. Isser kedusha. What's this kedusha? But Michael is a kedusha. Why is it considered isser kedusha? Because it says that you should be holy. Tanya Allah. Okay, now kedusha yilei and what does that tell me? Because in the parsha of Kedoshim, it also, I guess, it has that right next to it, right? That the Koyanim should be holy. Okay, Betanya Allah, it was taught on this Rabbi Yehuda Machmah. Rabbi Yehuda says exactly what you said is this a mitzvah. I say is this a kedusha. Exactly what you say is this a kedusha. I say is this a mitzvah. Now the way that works is like this: that the almana l'kayin gadol, that would be a mitzvah. That's a mitzvah. Because it says over there at the end of Seif Vayikra, it says Eila mitzvah. What's this a kedusha? Is Since the rabbi said that you should make yourself holy with things that are permissible, so the rabbis over here added on extra things. So it's called the Isser Kedusha. Whatever the case is, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that you have to do chalitza and not yibam. He just exchanges which category each one goes under. However, chalitza by, but he says you still have to do the chalitza. These Salkadai Rabbi Akiva. Really, if you would say that Rabbi Yehuda really holds Rabbi Akiva, which Rabbi Akiva said that Ain Kedushin types in B'chayve Lavan, that it's not considered a marriage if someone is prohibited to get married. If that's Rabbi Akiva's view, and Rabbi Yehuda holds like that, so then Mifti, Chayve Lavan, Rabbi Akiva, Chayve Tvisistam. Chayve Lavan, an almana to a Kohen Gadol. Let's say this brother, the surviving brother, is a Kohen Gadol. He's not allowed to marry his sister-in-law to do yibam because she's a widow. 1 second. What do we say? He's supposed to do chalitza. But if it would be an Isser Krisus, and which Rabbi Akiva holds, a Chayve Lavan is Isser Krisus like Karas, it's like that's so strict. Chayve Krisus Lavan chalitza b'yivninu. You don't even have to do chalitza. Rabbi Yehuda can't hold like Rabbi Akiva because we have a statement that Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to do chalitza. Now, he doesn't actually say you have to do chalitza. He just argues with the sages on when they describe what's an Isser mitzvah and what's an Isser kedusha. He argues with him. He says it's exactly the opposite, which sort of lends us to believe that he holds exactly what the rabbis hold. He just switches the categories around. The Gemara answers the dvar of the Tanakhama are no. He actually doesn't hold of them. He's just saying that I don't actually hold of what you're saying anyway. I'm just saying that according to you, you're wrong. You follow? But he doesn't hold of it. He's just saying that look, according to me, you don't do even chalitza here. I'm just telling you that you got your categories wrong. Okay. You never watched that No Kosher Meat, right?
What?
The No Kosher Meat, you ever watched it?
No, I didn't.
I gotta send it to you.
It's awesome.
It's about this new community, but it had some funny pieces in it. Okay. Yasser Rabbi Yitzchak Tani Kiditnan. When Rabbi Yitzchak came, he taught the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda the way it was listed in our Mishnah. We just had the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that the reason why there's only one prohibition here is because even though he's living with his mother and his mother is his father's wife, there should be 2 prohibitions. But the reason why Rabbi Yehuda said that it's only one prohibition, he's living with his mother, not his father's wife, is because there was no marriage between his father and his mother, because they were prohibited to get married for some reason. Okay, that was the way we just taught it. Comes along Rabbi Yitzchak and says that's not really what Rabbi Yehuda said. Rabbi Yehuda said something different. Rabbi Yehuda said not that there was any prohibition in that marriage, even if that marriage was a perfect marriage. His father and his mother were halachically acceptable to be married. Nevertheless, when he lives with his mother, he's only violating one prohibition of living with his mother, not living with his father's wife. Now we have to see why. Why would you say that? We had a great explanation. We said that he follows Rabbi Akiva, right? According to this, what's the explanation? Amar Abaya. We're going to try to bring some verses over here. Now, the following Gemara is highly complex. Okay, it's going to take us till the next Mishnah. If we get stuck in the middle, it's going to be very difficult to get back into it. One of these things that you sort of have to finish, or else it unravels. There's certain things when you like sewing or something, if you don't get to the end, you got to start over. But Moshe will tell us about it. Okay. Let me just tell you in short what we're going to do. We have a pasuk in Achrei Mos that says, "Erbas avicha ve'erbas imecha leisagale." The nakedness of your father, the nakedness of your mother, you shall not uncover. Now, the nakedness of the father could either mean that he's not allowed to have a homosexual relationship with his father, or it could mean he's not allowed to marry his father's wife. The nakedness of his father doesn't mean his father, it means his father's wife. And then it says the nakedness of his mother, he should not uncover. And the pasuk continues. It says, "She is your mother." Imchahi. She is your mother. Now the Gemara is going to learn. Imchahi. If you do have a relationship with her, you're only violating the prohibition of the mother, but not the father's wife. Why? Because it says Imchahi. There's only one prohibition here of the prohibition of the mother, but not the father's wife. That's what the Gemara is going to tell us. Imchahi is an exclusion that even though there could be a double prohibition, it's only one. Then the pasuk continues. It says, "Leisagal ervasa." You should not uncover her nakedness. And then it says the following pasuk says, "The nakedness of your father you shall not uncover. It's the nakedness of your father." Okay. What is this talking about? You just said the nakedness of your father a minute ago. Oh no, this is the nakedness of the wife of your father. I'm sorry. Ervas Eishes Avicha, the nakedness of your wife of your father. That's the next part. But if you learned Ervas Avicha means the wife of your father, now Ervas Avicha, Ervas Eishes Avicha, it's for sure the wife of your father. That's the translation. How does it say it's wife? So the Gemara is going to say that this is referring to after the father dies. She's still considered the wife of the father. Okay. And then it says, Ervas Avicha, she is the nakedness of the father. Okay. It does have the same thing twice, and we just explained that one is while the father's alive, and one is after the father died. Right? That's how we resolved it. Now, the Gemara is going to go through this. It's going to take us a long time to process it. It's going to go back and forth. It's going to be a whole. However, we're not done yet with the introduction. Then there's a pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim. Notice we didn't say any punishment over here. We only said a prohibition. You shall not. It's only a prohibition. It comes along Parshas Kedoshim, lists the arayas again, the prohibited relations, and over here it doesn't tell us the prohibition, it tells us the punishment. Listen to what it says. It says in Parshas Kedoshim, it says a man that lays with his father's wife, it says he uncovered his father's nakedness. They should both be put to death. Their blood is in them. Remember what we learned this morning? The May and Bum, skila. The blood is in them, skila. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to learn over here that when it says if he lives with his father's wife, then it doesn't have to be his mother. His father's wife doesn't have to be his mother. It could be his mother was a different woman, right? Whoever it is, it's a prohibition. Okay, now 1 second. Now, there's one other thing. Let's say it wasn't married to the father. Let's say it was just someone that had relations with the father. The father maybe raped the girl, or maybe it was wasn't a marriage, right? Wedlock, right? So the Gemara learns Ervas Avicha Gila. He uncovered the father's nakedness. From that includes even someone that wasn't married to the father, as long as it's his mother. Yeah. No, if his mother, even if it's not his mother.
Otherwise, what's the thing? His mother, we know for sure.
We got to get through that. Let's go. We'll go through it.
Including, she doesn't necessarily have to be your mother. That's what it is. Like you said.
Let's go through. We'll go through it. It's some things that are some loose ends. Okay, so we're asking, what's the explanation for Rabbi Yehuda that holds that there's only one prohibition if he lives with his mother that's also his father's wife? And there was an acceptable marriage between his mother and his father. Why should there only be one prohibition? Amar Abaya.
Saying one sentence, giving a statement and then a detail.
So let's see it. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, the Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Imchahi, she is your mother. Mishum ima yatem mechayva v'yatem mechayva mishum eishasa. Now when it says Imchahi, she is your mother, it's coming to say that you only get one prohibition of a mother, but not father's wife. Alameyata, the Gemara says, 1 second. When you read the next pasuk, it says, don't uncover the wife the nakedness of your father's wife should not be uncovered. Ervas avichahi, it is the nakedness of your father. That means if you live with someone that's your father's wife, the same way we said that imchahi means she is your mother, and there's only the prohibition of the mother. When it says avichahi, she is your father, then there's only the prohibition of your father, of the father's wife. So what's going to happen if he lives with someone that's both his mother and his father's wife? Each pasuk is going to cancel each other out. He's going to end up that he didn't violate anything. He can't violate the mother because it's the father's wife. He can't violate the father's wife because it says the mother. It's only the mother. It's going to end up that there was no prohibition because he had two. Cancels each other out. This is crazy. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Let's say it's his mother that's also his father's wife. You read this pasuk, you get excluded. You read that pasuk, you get excluded. So 1 second, this is ridiculous. If it's only his mother but not his father's wife, he's going to be chayiv. If it's his father's wife but not his mother, mechayiv, he's going to be chayiv, right? You can only have one. But if it's both, then it's going to cancel each other out. That doesn't make sense. So the diuk that you said, imchahi, contradicts the diuk of avichahi, and therefore we say we don't accept that whole diuk. So we have another problem. The Rabbanan Nami Yaksiv Imchi. If you want to say this is a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan, is there one prohibition or two prohibitions? And you quote a pasuk that tells me it's one prohibition. What do the Rabbanan do? The Rabbanan said there's two prohibitions. We're going to need that pasuk of Imchi for something that we're going to learn at the end of the share today. So wait. It's going to be a Xer Shabbat that we're going to learn. You have to wait for it. Okay. The Rabbi Yehuda Nami. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda also needs it for Rav Shisha Breder Ravidi. So now we're left without a source. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say there's only one pasuk? Alam Ravacha Breder Ravika. There's only one prohibition. Alam Ravacha Breder Ravika. Amakra Ervasa. The pasuk says, "Don't uncover her nakedness." Now, her nakedness sounds like only a singular. You only have one prohibition. You have to but you're not violating two prohibitions of two nakedness. It says her nakedness. It sounds like it's only one. It doesn't say her nakedness is or something, right? It just says that's because they contradicted. We said that obviously that can't be the diuk. So now we found another word in that pasuk that's going to be the diuk. It's a singular that tells me that. Well, the Gemara says, if that's the case, a person should not uncover the nakedness of his daughter-in-law. She is the wife of his son. Don't uncover her nakedness. It says ervasa, her nakedness, which sounds like it's only one, just like we just had a diuk before. You know what comes out now? If it's only one, so then if he lives with his daughter-in-law that's married to his son, we're going to say that it's only going to be one prohibition. But we have a Mishnah that says, someone lives with his daughter-in-law. If he lives with his daughter-in-law while his son is married to her, then there's going to be two prohibitions. She's a married woman, and it's also his son's wife. But it says it should only be one. If you want to follow that logic through, it doesn't fit. Well, I probably Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue over there. So we've just messed up the second possibility of explaining Rabbi Yehuda. The first one was Imchahi. We messed it up by saying it was also Avichahi, right? Now we said Ervasa. We messed it up by saying Ervasa by the daughter-in-law. We say that that's not going to work either. Rather, we're going to need to say that since it's one body, even though there's two prohibitions on her, but it's one body. That's why it says a singular. So we're left without a source for Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, Rava says, and this is where we start the whole complexity over here of learning from these two psukim back and forth from Kedoshim and Achrei Mais. And Rava says like this: the Sabra Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda holds Erva Savicha, Zuesha Savicha. Now, When it says the nakedness of your father, this is referring to not the nakedness of your father literally, it's talking about the nakedness of your father's wife. And because he does that, now we're going to have a Gezerah Shava to something else, which you'll see in a moment. But the other option is, that, which the Rabbanan are going to say, that it's referring to literally living with the father and a homosexual relationship. But that's it's prohibition on its own. Why? It's going to say, well, it's going to add a second prohibition. Okay. It's talking about the father's wife. And we're going to learn it from Gezerah Shava, which you have to hold on and we'll get that together. And it's understood that it's whether it's the father's wife that's his mother, whether it's the father's wife that's not his mother. Anytime it's the father's wife, there's going to be a prohibition because it's erbas eishes avicha, that's the way we're explaining erbas avicha. It means erbas eishes avicha. The nakedness of the father means the nakedness of the father's wife. Is it his mother? Doesn't matter. Let's say it's his mother, but it's not his father's wife. So how do you have a mother if it's not his father's wife? Because they weren't married. It's still his mother.
You think this also includes the opposite? You just switch all the genders around. A daughter that is her father. No, her father-in-law.
It could be. I mean, we have to go through the whole Gemara and analyze that, but it could be this.
Look at these two sentences saying they're each specific. Why don't we say the sentence with reverse avifa as being a cloud or reborn?
Yeah.
All right. And then say the other one is now coming to teach either by music or prat that it only counts reverse avifa when it also fulfills this, and therefore it's one. But they didn't say it.
I don't know why. I'd have to go through this more carefully, analyze this.
It's a good question.
Yeah, Dr. Stein is saying, why don't we do some sort of klal prat to klal here? We would say erbas avicha would include father's wife, not father's wife, mother, not mother, and then erbas imcha would mean only if she's the mother, and that would be a prat. That would limit the erbas avicha. Yeah, I'm not sure. I got to go through this really carefully to analyze it. Okay. So how do we know if it's the mother but not the father's wife? That's you read two more words in the pasuk, you get that. Imchahi. And okay, now the pasuk goes on. Imchahi, she is the mother, and this would be Rabbi Yehuda's view. The only chai because of the mother, but not because of the father's wife. Now we said this before, but we rejected this because it says avichahi. You have to wait. The Gemara is going to say that avichahi is going to be used for something else, and that's how we're going to resolve this issue. We have a source, Brisa, that supports this statement of Rava, how Rabbi Yehuda learns that there's only one prohibition if he lives with his mother that's also his father's wife. We're on top of Nandal. Okay, get ready. Now we go to, instead of Parshas Achrei Mos, which is Leviticus 18, now we go to Leviticus 20. Yeah, right. Same topic, but instead of giving the prohibitions, now it gives us the punishments. All right. Ish. The pasuk over there says Ish Eshes Aviv, a man that will live with his father's wife. So it says Ish, a man. Prat l'katan. This is excluding a child. We said before, we spoke about this. Why does it have to say we had a child? The child is responsible for everything. Like why specifically? Then maybe we'd have to kill him together with the mother, just like the animal gets killed. And we had the discussion.
Yeah, but we once learned there could be like 9-year-old.
A 9-year-old. There's two ways of learning. It's after older 9 or under 9. Okay, Asher Yishkav Eshes Aviv, that lays with his father's wife. Mashma Bein Eshes Aviv Shimei Bein Eshes Aviv Shloimei. Doesn't mention if it's his mother. Sounds like it doesn't matter. Okay, punishment is going to be the same. Skila. How do I know that the same rule will apply to his mother that's not his father's wife? We didn't say over here anything about a woman that had a relations with the father that's not the mother.
What?
A woman that the father had relations with, but's not his mother. We only have father's wife that is his mother, father's wife that's not his mother.
One we said that anyone who's married to the father.
Married. Anyone that's married.
And when he spoke about the death, the wife
That means married. Married. I'm talking about someone that the father had relations with that wasn't married. Only if it's his mother. But it seems. Yeah. How do we know this? It says Ervas of Gila. We read another two, three words in the pasuk. It says he uncovered the nakedness of his father. Now, 1 second. That was referring to his father's wife. Now you're telling me it's referring to his mother. The Gemara explains mufna. Those words are extra. Because they're extra, we're going to end up using them in a Gezerah Shavah. And you're going to see what's going to happen. Lahakish, lead them in a Gezerah Shavah. This is going to be used as a comparison to make a Gezerah Shavah. Now, let's wait for that. It's going to come up. Mais yumasu. They're put to death. Beskila. Atam Beskila, you say that it's stoning, about some calling me somewhere, but maybe it's one of the other prohibitions in the Torah, not one of the other punishments in the Torah. There's 4. You chose one of the 4. You chose stoning. Who says that it's stoning? It says put to death. It says the blood is in them, and it says by the witchcraft, right? By the sorcery, even Yadaini. It says Demayim Bam, and over there Mala Halon, just like by the Ivan Yadani, it's Beskila, Afkan Beskila. We learned Demayim Bam means Skila. Aina Shamanu. Now we know the punishment that it's Skila. Azhara Minayan, but you can't do a punishment unless there was a negative prohibition. Here's the negative prohibition. So now we jump back to Parshas Achrei Mos. We go back to Achrei Mos. It says over here, don't uncover the father's nakedness. And what does it mean, the father's nakedness? It's the father's wife. How do you know it's the father's wife? Maybe it's the father himself. You can't have a homosexual relationship with the father. It says, Nemer kan erva savicha leisagal, nemer alon erva savicha gila. Over here it says, erva savicha leisagale. That's talking about in Achrei Mos. And then it says in Parshas Kedoshim, erva savicha gila, that he uncovers the father's nakedness, malal and bishus, just like in Parshas Kedoshim, it says clearly the father's wife. It's talking about when it says ervas aviv gila, the nakedness of the father. And it's not referring to the father, it's referring to the father's wife. Because the pasuk starts off saying, Isha yishkaves ishes aviv. He lays with his father's wife. And then it says he uncovers the father's nakedness. Father's nakedness means the father's wife. So we go back to the pasuk in Achrei Mos, and over there it says, ervas avicha leisagale, leisagale, ervas avicha. It's coming to tell me the father's wife, even though it says the father's nakedness means the father's wife. And it's understood. Whether it's the father's wife, that's his mother, whether it's not his mother. How do we know that there's a prohibition also for for his mother? That's not his father's wife. It says clearly the nakedness of his mother, he shouldn't uncover. But that only tells me, because we're going back to Achrei Mos now, that only tells me the prohibition. That his mother, that's not his father's wife, is the same as his mother that is his, it's named as his mother that is his father's wife. But in Parshas Kedoshim it doesn't say imai, where it's going to talk about the punishment, skila. Well, the Gemara says, well, nemer kan erva savicha leisagal, nemer alon erva savicha of gila, ma zara asa kasavim meshenim beishasav be'akim mesheitzav. Just like when it came to the we do this verbal analogy. It's like it says gila by when it's talking about the punishment, when it's talking about the prohibition, and we did a comparison there between if it's his mother that is his father's wife, the mother is not his father's wife. Also, Parshas Kedoshim, when it talks about his father's wife, it doesn't make a difference if it's his mother or not. Also, the Torah compares them. So the same rule is going to apply to his mother that's not his father's. We're going to the pasuk in Achrimais. It says it is his mother. That was the point we were looking for when we quoted this brisa. Because this brisa right here supports Rabbi Yehuda's view that if there's two prohibitions, you only get punished for one of them. Obviously, not the death penalty. Talking about if you had to bring a sacrifice because it was a mistake. You went into the wrong hotel room. That's the way we described it.
All the motel rooms look alike.
Yeah. Do you say 2:11 or 2:12? Rabbanon. What do the Rabbanon do? They say that there's two prohibitions. They say erba savicha mamish. They say they lose the whole comparison here because they say that when it says erba savicha, it's talking about literally not to have relations with the father, not the father's wife. Umar says, "Hi, but that we learned another passage. We can't not allowed to have homosexual relations. That's the chayvel of shtayim because the father is a double prohibition. Because Rabbi Yehuda, just like Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yehuda says, if a non-Jew, we start off saying a non-Jew, but soon we're going to say that's referring to a Jew. If a non-Jew lives with his father, chayev shtayim, he gets two punishments. He lives with his father's brother, his uncle. Chayev shtayim is chayev two punishments. One because it's a relative, and one because it's a man. Amar Rava says, "Mistabra milsa Rabbi Yehuda b'Yisrael b'shoigig b'karban." It's probably talking about a Jewish person, and it was b'shoigig. I don't know how that could be b'shoigig, but somehow it's b'shoigig, right? He didn't know it was prohibited. I don't know what's b'shoigig. And we're talking about a karban. Why do we say that it was a non-Jew? Lishna ma'al Yehu, we didn't want to talk about a Jew doing this, so we said our example was a non-Jew, but that's not what we meant because. Because if it would actually be a non-Jew, what's the law of a non-Jew that commits a sin like this, even by mistake? They get the death penalty. Betray Katla say, what are you going to kill him twice? They can't be. They must be talking about a Jew. Okay. It was also taught in the Bryce.
What did the non-Jew do?
Lived with his father or his uncle. Two punishments. Not with his father's wife.
How can we give him? He's going to say, "I don't believe in this stuff."
Talking about when the Jewish people were in control, and they lived in Israel.
Oh, so these.
They were. If you agree to live in Israel, if you want to live in Israel, you got to accept the rules.
What were they called again? Gertosha.
Tanya Namiach was also done in the price. I have to actually pause for a second because I have to take care of something. Give me 1 second. Let me just pause the recording.
This is intense.
We're up to a Tanya Namihachi, Anandalit. All right, Tanya Namihachi, Abalov, someone that lives with his father, Chayev Shtayim. He has two punishments. Abalov, his uncle, Chayev Shtayim. It's Chayev twice. Ikeda Amri, there are those that say, the like Rabbi Yehuda, that this does not fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Ikeda Amri, because Rabbi Yehuda said he only Chayev once. Some say that it does fit with Rabbi Yehuda. And we'll learn it from Kal V'Chaimer, from the father's brother. If, in other words, on the father himself, maybe we'll say Avichahi. We say no, it's a Kal V'Chaimer. That if he's chayiv from father's brother twice, so Aviv like Kolshkein. So for sure, should be chayiv if he lives with his father. He should be chayiv twice. How do we get that? We got that from a Kal V'Chaimer. If his uncle, he's chayiv if he lives with his uncle. Two prohibitions: a man and it's also his uncle. So the father for sure. Now 1 second, but we have a rule that ein einshin minadin. You don't make Kal V'Chaimer to a punishment. It says, well, this is actually a machlokes. Can you make a punishment based on a Kal V'Chaimer? We have a basis for this because by the uncle we say it, but it doesn't say it clearly if he lives with the father. Say there's one opinion that holds yes, one opinion that holds. Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan do? How do we know that the father's wife is prohibited? It says clearly, Erbas Eisha Savicha. It's in and in the second pasuk in Achrimais, in the two pasukim that we quoted tonight. The second one says clearly this. Rabbi Yehuda. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with that pasuk? He learned from Erbas Imcha Leisagale. He actually learned from Xer Shava. Rabbi Yehuda uses that pasuk to tell me that even if the father has already died, it's still considered the father's wife. But the Rabbanan also hold of that it's still considered a prohibition of the father's wife, even if the father is not alive. But whom we say for the Granafka, the Rabbanan say that I learned from the end of the pasuk that says Erba Savicha, it is the nakedness of the father. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda do with that end of the pasuk? Very interesting. Here's the resolution to our original question. The original question is, how can you learn from Imchahi, she is your mother, that there's only one prohibition, but it also says Avichahi, she is the nakedness of the father, it's only one prohibition. And they're going to cancel each other out. That was our original question. The Gemara says, no. Avichahi tells me that there's no prohibition of a married woman here. Could have had three prohibitions. We dropped the married woman one. We did the mother, father's wife was a machlekes, but the married woman we dropped. Why did we drop that? Because it says avichahi. That pasuk is being used for that. Banan tanan. 1 second. Habal eshasav. So in Livlith, his father's wife. Chayvlam shemeisav mishemeisav. Ben b'chayav ben lach misav. V'lei palig Rabbi Yehuda. We would say. So 1 second. But Yehuda doesn't argue about this. He says it's Yechayev because of the father's wife. Yechayev because of Eish Sish. Yechayev because of Eish Sish. And Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue. Amar Rabbi Apalik B'Brisa. Yeah, he doesn't argue here, but he argues in the Brisa. You quoted one Brisa where it doesn't say it, but there's another Brisa that says Rabbanan Einish Teishes Aviv Lachamis Minalo. Where do the Rabbanan know that after the father passes away, that is still considered the father's wife, and there's a punishment of skila? Bishleim Rabbi Yehuda Ma'aseh B'Gzeir Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda at Gzeir Shabbat that learned everything from Achrim Ma'aseh to Kedoshim. El Rabbanan Minalo, where do the Rabbanan know it? Amrilach, they would say to you, who Erbas Aviv Gila, that pasuk of Erbas Aviv Gila, which is in Kedoshim, who the Mapiklal Rabbi Yehuda Gzeir Shabbat, which Rabbi Yehuda used for Gzeir Shabbat. They'll use to tell you they don't have the Gzeir Shabbat because they already used Erva Savicha for something else. So they'll learn that it's still considered the father's wife from that pasuk. Rabbanan where do the Rabbanan know punishment for the mother that's not the father's wife? Where do the Rabbanan get that from? And this is what we quoted at the beginning. He said, Amar Rav Shesha, Brei Rabidi, Amar Kra, Imchahi. The Rabbanan used the pasuk of Imchahi for this, to tell me that a mother that's not the father's wife, Asa Kasav Li'imei Shein Eshesav, Kimish Eshesav. The pasuk considers it as if it is the father's wife. Same prohibition. Mother, in other words, even if it was never married to the father, it still is a prohibition of the father's wife. Okay. Abal Kalasai, someone that lives with his daughter-in-law. This we're going one step further in the psukim over there in Achrimais. It says, no, the Chumash here, but it says that Ish Ervas Kalasa Leisagale Ishes Binchahi or something. It's the wife of your son. So you should be chayiv too. It starts off with saying that it's his daughter-in-law, but the pasuk concludes with saying that it's his son's wife. It's coming to tell you, it's not coming to tell me that it's a separate prohibition. It's coming to tell me that it's one prohibition. Why does it repeat it? Coming to tell me that it's still considered the daughter-in-law, even if the son passed away. That's a lifelong title description that she gets. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Mishnah.